right, we're back. I just wanted to chat for a few minutes about the UCC and basically what I'd like you to get out of it. I know I'm having you read all of Article 2 and Article 3 in the back of your book in Appendix C, but I also know that's more of an overview, and what I really think you want to get out of this is this. The UCC is basically contract law, but written out in statute form. Uniform Commercial Code, like we've talked about before, uniform codes are basically statutes that are created by a uniform group, a group that gets together to talk about what the uniform laws should be. And then these laws can be accepted by states as their law. So the UCC is one of those that has been accepted by most of the states. So you're going to see in California, the California UCC is going to look almost exactly the same or mostly the same as the New York UCC. So think about this as a way to have it be that when you are working with other businesses who may not be in New Mexico or may be somewhere else because you're somewhere else, that you can have a law that you kind of both know how it works every time. So here, that's the first thing. Most of the states are going to have almost exactly the same law. Second thing is this. The UCC applies only to goods. What are goods? Goods are tangible and movable, which are big words to say. They're things you can touch and things you can move around. So a computer is a good, a table is a good, house, not a good, because while it's tangible, not movable. I know it sounds silly, but I'm not a good. I mean, I think there are people who think that people are goods, but in this case, that's illegal, so it's not going to fall under the UCC. But we're going to talk a little about how in a contract situation, say you're contracting for construction, well, construction would fall under the common law contract rules. Say you're contracting to buy some desks for a new office, that would fall under the UCC. And so in order to kind of understand this better, you need to start every contract discussion with, are we talking about common law contracts or are we talking about UCC contracts? Because remember, we just studied common law contracts, and you need an offer, you need acceptance, you need consideration, and all of those things come out of it in common law. Well, now what you're going to see is you need similar things in UCC, in the UCC world, we're going to call them commercial contracts world, but things work differently also. So, you know, when there's breach or when there's revocation or whatever, it's going to work in a different way. So I just want to point out 4 of the different sections and just tell you a little bit about them. I don't expect you to know in depth about all of the sections. I just would like you to get a handle on this so you know that if you're dealing in goods, it's different than just your common law contracts. So let's start with as one person I've heard talk about this he says, it just sounds like all we're doing is talking about numbers. So that is what we're going to kind of do is I would like you to know these 4 rules, especially by number and in general what they do. That doesn't mean that you know everything about it or how it works, but I would like you to know in general what these are. So let's start with 2601. 2601 in your book, it's in part 6 when we're talking about breach. Basically 2601, it says in the book, it's the buyer's rights on improper delivery. That is going to be the title that the UCC gives it. Now, this is also called something called the perfect tender rule. Basically, as a buyer, you are entitled to 100% perfect product. So unless of course what you bought, what you accepted, or what you offered on was something like, for instance, a broken computer, that's what your contract was for, then you are entitled to 100% perfect product of what you ordered. All right, so basically what that means is you have the right as a buyer under the UCC, remember only goods, you have a right as a buyer to reject any goods that are not 100% perfect tender to you. So just keep that in mind. You can reject it altogether, you can reject it in part, you can accept all of it together, or you can accept some of them that are perfect. So if you get 100 desks and 50 of them are broken, you can reject 50 of them because they don't fit under the perfect tender rule. All right, so that's 2601. Next one, 2606. This says what constitute acceptance. Well, we just talked about you could reject or you could accept. So here's the rule here. You have a right of rejection, but your right of rejection is waived when you accept. So acceptance is a little different under the UCC because generally, we're looking at the parties' agreement in common law, and we can say, well, they took the paper that said that they owned the house, or they took possession of something under that contract, or whatever, or they accepted it by handing a check over for the amount that they had talked about. So there were a lot of ways of accepting in common law. Now, accepting in UCC is not hard either, but it is a little different. Basically, you have a reasonable time to inspect the goods that you're given, just like we talked about before. If you could reject the 50 broken desks, you have a reasonable amount of time, and this really is a reasonable amount of time based on a reasonable person standard and everything. So you have a reasonable amount of time to inspect the goods and then accept. And there are different ways you can accept. One of the ways you accept is by signing something that says, yes, they were delivered, yes, I accept them. Another way is by, after a reasonable amount of time for you to inspect, you send an email or you write a letter and you say, okay, I'm accepting the goods. Another way is basically that you just fail to reject in a reasonable amount of time. So you keep them and you don't send them back. Another way is that you treat them as if they are not the possession of the sellers anymore. And that's kind of a fancy way of basically saying you're using them. You are treating them as if they are yours. All right, so that's 2606. Now, what about, there is this special word that is basically, we're going to talk about conforming and non-conforming goods. Well, conforming goods would be, I wanted white computer desks, and you sent white computer desks. Well, your sending white computer desks conformed with my request for white computer desks, and therefore you've sent me conforming goods. Now, what if you send me black computer desks? Are those conforming goods or non-conforming goods? Because they are computer desks still, but they're black. So probably we would say they're non-conforming goods because they're not what I ordered, and I specifically ordered white. However, if you send them to me, I have the right to reject them. Remember, from 601, I have the right to reject them, or to accept part of them, or to accept all of them. So I could say, well, I wanted white, but actually now that I have them, black actually looks okay, and I'm okay with black. So I will keep them. So I can send you a note and accept them, or I can keep them and use them as if they're mine. So what if, however, I say I would like white computer desks, and you send black computer desks. And we had a time agreement. So basically our time agreement was, you will provide me with 100 white computer desks by May 1st. And it is April 28th, and you've sent me 100 black computer desks. Well, whether I've accepted or not, the seller, the seller, have the right to cure if we are before the specific performance date. So I don't have the right to repudiate the contract or call for breach if you provide me 100 white computer desks by May 1st, because that was the original date of our contract. So remember, 508 basically says that the seller can cure any non-conforming goods as long as it's before the date of performance. So the last one we're going to talk about is 2608. So we've talked about 2601, the perfect tender rule. We've talked about 2606, about the right of rejection and basically what constitutes acceptance. And then we've talked about 2508, which is about curing for a seller. How does the seller cure its sending of non-conforming goods? So the fourth one we're going to talk about is 2608, which is about revocation. So when can a buyer who has already accepted, so think of it this way, I received the goods, I said, yes, I received them, and I've inspected them, and they're what I want. And so I said it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, something happened, and I don't want these goods anymore. So what kind of times can I, as buyer, repudiate, or revocate, not repudiate, sorry, something I've already accepted. Well, there are very specific times that can occur in 608. Basically, this is a little more in-depth, and I'm not going to go in-depth. I'm just going to do a basic. Basically, I already should have inspected. So unless it's something that really I couldn't have found in an inspection, that's one thing if I couldn't find it in an inspection, or you as the seller made some promises to me and said, oh, well, I've looked at them, they're perfect, there should be no issue, don't even worry about it. Mostly those are the reasons why I might be able to revoke my acceptance after I've already accepted. There are a couple other specific reasons, but for our purposes, let's leave it at that. There are some reasons, and basically they're going to be like a significant change. It's going to have to take a significant change in the product, or what happened, or what I thought it was, or what you, the seller, told me, for me to be able to actually fall under that revocation. So I understand that this is complicated and it's going to be a little different, but the basics I want you to know are that the UCC applies to goods, and what are goods? Goods are movable and tangible, and that basically it has the same offer, acceptance, and other things the other elements that you had in common law, but they're going to be applied just a little differently. So keep in mind those ones: 2601, 2606, 2508, and 2608, and the definition of goods. And I think that we will get a good handle on this. So ask if you have questions. Let's chat about it. I'd really like to be able to discuss some more this week what the difference is between the UCC and common law, and to really get a good handle on contracts. So good luck. Have a great week. Bye-bye.